You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the weekly Firecast, episode 36, interview with Dave Hirschkop of Dave's Gourmet. Plus, I answer listener feedback.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies. Those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And hello once again to all the chili heads, hot sauce fanatics, barbecuers, and chili pepper fans everywhere. This is your host, Scott Roberts, bringing you yet another big show here on the weekly Firecast. This time out, we have the one and only Dave Hirschkop. Yes, the Dave of Dave's Gourmet, obviously most famously known for Dave's Insanity Sauce, which for you newer hot sauce fanatics was actually the very first super hot sauce that used chili pepper extract to get most of its heat. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 whole years since that sauce has debuted. Anyway, that's pretty much what put Dave's Gourmet on the map. And since then, Dave has come up with many other products, in my opinion, much better than the Insanity Sauce. He's had a number of other gourmet lines on the side in addition to the hot sauce. Some are still around, there's the spicy snacks. He has a terrific line of pasta sauces. I mean, Dave's is more than just a hot sauce. So you owe it to yourself to look into that. Anyway, that interview with Dave via Skype is here later in this episode. My good friend, chili head blogger and reviewer Ken Alexander, who usually does his Ken's Fiery World segment, is still out of town. He's still traveling in Alaska. So as I explained last week, it's hard for him to get a signal up there, for me and him to coordinate times because of the time difference. But as soon as he gets back, we're going to record a couple of segments, so you'll probably be hearing him in the next episode of the Weekly Firecast, episode 37. So in this episode that you're listening to right now, episode 36, I'm going to answer some listener feedback. Yes, as I always remind everybody, that I enjoy getting any kind of feedback, any kind of emails that you send. The easiest way to do that, of course, is to go to one of the two websites. You can either go to the numeral twoguystalking.com/Firecast, fill out the simple web form on the side, or go to the new weeklyfirecast.com, fill out the contact form, and any praises, any constructive criticism, suggestions for the show, technical issues, whatever it may be, I want to hear your feedback. But here in just a couple minutes, I'm going to answer probably about 5 or 6 different emails that I've selected from you, the listeners. For my product review of the week, I'm going to cover Spicy Rooster Bourbon Barbecue Sauce, plus a foodie tip of the week. So all that's going to come up in just a couple seconds as we get to the regular segments here on the Weekly Firecast, part of the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And now, the foodie tip of the week.
My foodie tip for this week, since Dave Hirschkop of Dave's Gourmet and I talk about his pasta sauces here in just a little bit, I'm going to give you a few guidelines as to know what kind of pasta sauces to use with what types of pasta. Now, obviously, these are just guidelines. You don't have to follow them religiously, but you'll probably get the best results if you do these. Now, if you have the long, skinny, rod-shaped pastas like spaghetti, they are best with olive oil and tomato-based sauces. They should be a little bit thinner to where they can coat each strand evenly. Things that are extremely thick and creamy probably won't do as well. And if you have tubular-shaped pasta like penne or ziti, they are good with the really thick, hearty sauces. Ribbon-shaped pastas, ones that are kind of flatter, say like fettuccine, are better with the white creamy sauces. And as a good general rule of thumb, the wider the noodle, the heavier the sauce. Then last but not least, if you have the weird shaped pastas, the things that are really small or the pinwheel shape, well, what you'll want to use are the thinner sauces or even like a chunky vegetable sauce, because these odd-shaped pastas tend to have a lot more nooks and crannies in which to trap the sauce. Of course, the best thing to do is just experiment. See what's right for you. But as a general rule of thumb, these should give you the very best results.
And now, the review of the week.
For this episode, I'm going to cover Spicey Rooster Barbecue Company's Bourbon barbecue sauce. Now, anything bourbon, immediately, I get a type of flavor profile in my mind. I can sense it on my tongue. It's kind of hard to place it. A little bit of sweetness, a little bit of tanginess, but it has that distinctive strength, that powerfulness as just that little tiny bit of alcohol will give to a sauce. And with me, that's usually a good thing. Bourbon, whiskey, whatever type of product like that usually goes spectacularly well with a barbecue sauce or a steak sauce. But this particular sauce from a company called Spicey Rooster, based in Ohio, they actually spell their name Spicey, S-P-I-C-E-Y. Got to get that E-Y at the end. Their bourbon barbecue sauce does not disappoint at all. A terrific product. At its core, I would say if it would fall into any regional commonality, you could probably compare this most to like a Kansas City style barbecue sauce. Tomato based, really sweet. Got the molasses, brown sugar, give it a nice, sweet, rich, tangy base. But of course, there's that little bit of tiny kick from the bourbon whiskey. And you have something that could be outstanding on things like chicken. Grow you up some chicken legs, some chicken wings, and this will do amazingly well. Now, looks-wise, it's about as brown as a barbecue sauce could be. It's a little thin. It could be just a touch thicker for my preference. So if you're the type to apply a sauce during the last couple minutes of a cook, it will thicken, will caramelize just a touch. Just enough to, avoid just that runny, drippy muck that I hate. But the taste has a smooth strength. I guess that's kind of a good way to describe the bourbon infusion in this. That also does well on pork steaks, on ribs, on pulled pork. And because of the strengths on pork and on chicken, this gets a very high mark from me. Now, I'll give you my rating in just a second, and you're probably wondering, well, Scott, you're a hot sauce fan with a name like Spicey Rooster. Does it have heat? Yes, it does have a little bit of heat. But nothing too terribly incendiary for most barbecue lovers out there. The touch of cayenne and even a little bit of the garlic just kind of round out the flavor a bit to give it a kick, but it's not really going to burn anybody. So the heat on a level from 1 to 5, 1 being pretty mild, 5 being just like the surface of the sun, this will get probably 1.5, maybe 2 if you apply a whole lot of this on there, but it's not like a hot sauce. But back to the rating of the overall flavor. This is a very superb sauce. I highly recommend it, and I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And if you're interested in applying a little bit of bourbon-infused twang to your barbecue or grilled items, you can pick up a 16-ounce bottle of this for $6.50 plus shipping at spiceyrooster.com. And remember, that's spicy spelled with an E-Y at the end. So it's S-P-I-C-E-Y, rooster.com. Or you can just click on the link in the show notes for episode 36.
And now, the special feature of the week.
And now it's once again time to answer some viewer feedback. I do read each and every piece of correspondence, email, and everything that's inputted to me from the contact form, both on the twoguystalking.com/Firecast site and the new weeklyfirecast.com site. And the first piece of feedback comes from Tim Dwyer of Hamilton, Ontario. And Tim writes, "The reason I love the Firecast is because Scott asks more than the general interview questions. I always learn something when I listen. It almost is like a documentary. I love to know the ins and outs of this food industry because one day I hope to be a part of it with my products. The K. Johns interview was the most interesting interview I have ever heard in the fiery foods business. Thanks a bunch, Tim Dwyer, Hamilton, Ontario." Thank you very much, Tim, for the compliments. It really, really means a lot to me. I'm humbled, and I'm honored that, somebody would say something like that. Now, one of the aims I have with the Weekly Firecast is not just to simply splash up a 5, 6, 7-minute interview, some little quickie thing, just to kind of fill in a little segment, a little bit of time. What I would like is some meaty, real, in-depth coverage. And yeah, there have been all kinds of shows in the past, both on cable, podcasts, live shows, and I'm not knocking any of them. A lot of them are very, very good in the way they present things, and there have been some previous good interviews, especially on the old but now defunct Hot Sauce Weekly podcast. But what I, as a fiery foods and barbecue fan, want to hear is that, well, like you kind of described, a documentary coverage. Solid, in-depth, and not just something that's confined to a clock, like on a radio show. It's like, oh, there's a commercial break. They come back. Let's talk to somebody for 6-7 minutes and go to another commercial break. I want something more hard-hitting in detail than just that. And because of the whole podcast medium, it allows me to not be confined to a specific amount of time. You know, if I had a live web show for an hour every week, yeah, I suppose I can kind of fill up the time. But you know what? I would want, specific points where I start this segment every week, that segment. With a podcast, I can be all over the map. Yes, they might bug a few podcast listeners where one show is 35 minutes one week, but the next week is an hour and 5 minutes. Really, I think an interview should take as long as it needs to take. Some people aren't big talkers. Some people really don't have the type of information to dispense. Now, there's like K-John that you mentioned. I could talk to him for hours. He's so full of knowledge about his products, about the industry, about hot sauces, about chili peppers, that anything less than a half hour talking with him, to me, is an insult to what he has to offer. So that is what I continue to do. The podcast is never going to be confined, at least in this format. It's never going to be confined to, it's got to be exactly 20 minutes and the interviews have to be shortened. No, it's going to take as long as it needs to take to put good information into the ears of you, the loyal listeners. Thanks again, Tim. And you also mentioned that you wanted to be part of the fiery foods industry in the future. Well, I wish you the best of luck. And who knows, I may be talking with you in the next year or two. And the next bit of feedback comes from Jeremy Sherman of Sterling Heights, Michigan. And he writes, "Hi, Scott. I'm really enjoying the Firecast. I listened to all the episodes at work this past weekend. I want to say that you are doing a great job. Your show is entertaining and informative. My concern is the links in the show notes on iTunes. I've been looking for the links to click on to check out your guest websites, but there's nothing to click. Can you fix that, please? That's my only complaint. Keep up the great work and keep it burning. Cheers, Jeremy." Well, thank you very much, Jeremy, for your email, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Now, a word on the show notes. Now, the show notes I provide, it gives a brief outline of everything that's in the show. I try to mention the guest, whatever other segments are in there, whatever products I have to review. That way, you could easily take a look at it, see if there's anything of interest to you, and listen and download the particular episode if you want. And in those show notes, I also provide, as Jeremy says, links to external websites. I always put up the website link to the main interview subject. I will put up a link to the product I reviewed, to their parent company website, and any other important links that are mentioned in the episode. But where these show notes are located, that's a different story. They're always located on the websites and not within iTunes itself. So to see the show notes, what you need to do is go back to the show notes of that particular episode. And these show notes are available at the sites wherever I post these at. They could be found at weeklyfirecast.com. They could be found at the numeral 2guystalking.com/firecast. And also at scottrobertsweb.com, my main blog site. All you do is go to that particular episode. Like, for instance, this episode is episode 36. Look for episode 36 at one of those aforementioned websites, and you'll see all the links there. Now, within iTunes, it really doesn't give a place to click links to go outside of iTunes. Yes, I do give the description of what the main guest talks about, of what Ken and his Ken's Fiery World segment talks about the sauce or product I review, etc., just to kind of give you an idea what's in the show. But iTunes does not allow external links, therefore you'll have to go to one of the aforementioned websites. So I hope that answers your question, Jeremy. And again, thanks for listening to the show. And the next piece of feedback comes from Bill Dotson. Just a little quick note. Says, "Howdy, Scott. Just listened to your initial podcast. Love it. Thank you." Well, thank you very much, Bill. And even though Bill didn't say a whole lot, any little quick hello, suggestion, as long as it's some real salient content, I'd love to hear from everybody. And the next piece of feedback comes from Jason Barthold. And he writes, "Hey Scott, love your podcast. Just stumbled upon it via StumbleUpon, and I'm going to subscribe on iTunes so that I could listen on my iPad and iPhone. Here's a suggestion. Please interview Blair Lazar. I'm sure you know who he is, but he is one of the biggest brands in hot sauce, and I would love to hear how he got his passion for burning fiery foods. Keep up the great work, Jason." Thank you very much, Jason. And the first thing you mentioned, Stumble Upon, yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere. All the social networking, social media sites, the Web 2.0 sites, it could be Facebook, Stumble Upon, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Pinterest, etc., etc., etc. I'm pretty much ubiquitous on the web. All you need to do to find me is search for Scott Roberts or Scott Roberts Web at any of those sites, and it's easy to find me. But this particular listener, Jason, found me on Stumble Upon, and I think that's kind of cool. But anyway, to address what he suggested, to interview Blair Lazar. Yes, I do know who he is. I've known him for a number of years. Yes, he is a friend of mine that I talk to a couple times a year. An interview with him is going to happen sometime in the future. Exactly when, I do not know. Now, it's not like Blair and I are exactly best buddies and we talk every day. But, every now and then, we call up one another, talk for an hour, just to, talk about the business, personal life, etc., etc. And the last time I heard from him, a couple of weeks ago, we talked for about an hour, and I mentioned kind of towards the end, it's like, hey, I need to get you on the podcast. And, of course, where we were at the time we were talking and how we were talking to one another, I was on my iPhone. I really couldn't start recording the conversation at the time. I pretty much need to be in front of my laptop using Skype, either myself using Skype to call someone on the phone line, or speaking to someone else who happens to be on Skype, or at the Two Guys Talking studios in St. Charles, Missouri, and the teleconference suite. But anyway, back to Blair. He's been very, very busy. He has a lot going on right now. But he has promised me an interview, and of course, I'm sure he's going to knock it out of the park. I'm sure it's going to be a long, lengthy, very detailed interview, talking about his passion, his products, his thoughts on the industry. I know I can get it out of him. In the meantime, if you want a text interview to kind of tide you over, I'd done a proper interview with him probably about 4 years ago on my website, scottrobertsweb.com. It's one of my favorite interviews I've ever done with anybody. Blair does not disappoint. There wasn't a single question that he didn't answer honestly and passionately and back down from. I'll go ahead and put the link to that in the show notes for episode 36. So again, the interview with Blair is coming up hopefully sometime this year. The next piece of feedback comes from Roger S. Vitagliano. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He comes from Harvester, Missouri, a fellow Missouri boy. And Roger writes, "Kick-ass show, Scott. Just wanted you to know that the contact form you've been advertising on your show has been giving me troubles. 1, the email address is too short for my home email address, forcing me to use my work one. 2, I cannot see the form on my iPad. Not sure if there's a bug with Apple products, but you might want to get this looked into. Thanks. Keep on keeping on, brother." Thanks, Roger. And even little technical issues like this, let me know about them, folks. I'm pretty sure the form he's talking about is the one specifically on the twoguystalking.com/Firecast site. It's based in Flash, which of course, a lot of you know, Flash cannot be seen in iPad or iPod, any of the iOS devices. So we apologize for that. We are working on a brand new twoguystalking.com website, which we hope to have up this summer. And of course, we will make sure we fix that problem with the forums not being able to be seen on those devices as well. The address field being too short, we'll look into that as well. So for the time being, there are a couple of different options. I've already mentioned them a couple times that you can contact me. One is to go to weeklyfirecast.com if you are on an iOS device and give me feedback that way as well. Of course, that's a general invitation, everybody. I want to hear from you. Whatever kind of feedback, constructive criticism, suggestions, anything about the show, tell me what's on your mind. And not only that, but I might be reading your feedback in the next listener feedback segment. We're going to take a little break right now. When we come back, I'm going to be speaking with Dave Hirschkop of Dave's Gourmet. So stick around.
Blood, a dark passenger. The binding ties of clear plastic. They're not just hallmarks of the hit Showtime television program, Dexter. They're bullet points talked about each week on the Dexter podcast from Two Guys Talking. Don't miss out on killer dialogue that leaves you with a bloodlust for more. It's the Two Guys Talking Dexter podcast for Dexter fans. Find out more now at twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com.
Do you consider yourself to be a chilihead and want to find some hot new gear to wear?
Oh, yeah.
Look no further than chiliheadtees.com. If you're a heat freak and love hot sauce, chili peppers, or anything dealing with fiery and spicy foods, this is the place to get t-shirts to show off your obsession. Chilihead Tees is dedicated to giving you the hottest t-shirts, mouse pads, mugs, aprons, and more for the discriminating chilihead. Go to chiliheadtees.com. That's chiliheadstees.com.
Fight Ribbon Clothing Company. Clothing and fight gear on a mission. Fight Ribbon is the original MMA clothing company built from the ground up for fighters and fans. Clothing with a purpose. The new face of cancer awareness. Fight Ribbon Clothing Company. Because what you wear matters. Visit fightribbon.com.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can mean all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
TwoGuysTalkingPoker.com. I'm Vic Porcelli, that's one guy. And Big Slick, a.k.a. Andy Kazin, he's the other guy. Hiya.
Hey, that's me.
You know, Andy and I catch some hot hands when we're playing poker. But if you want to talk about hot sauces, chili peppers, any food with real heat, it's Scott Roberts and the Weekly Firecast on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we're back with more of the Weekly Firecast.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
Joining me on the Skype chat line is none other than Dave Hirschkop. How's everything going with you this morning?
Everything is great. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
No problem. Now, a lot of people don't know exactly where you had your origins with hot sauce. Now, long time ago, you had a restaurant in Maryland, correct?
Yeah, we had a Burrito Madness restaurant at the University of Maryland on the campus. That was an interesting experience.
Now, was that your first foray into hot sauces? Were you experimenting with creating hot sauces before that, or was it during that time?
No, I mean, before that, I was only like 21 before that. But the restaurant was really the first foray into really seriously even tinkering with food. It was all sort of new to me. It was kind of a curiosity. I was like, wow, there's people that like things that are unbearable for most people. And, humor and innovation and things like that appeal to me. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. That's why I just sort of said, well, gosh, the sauces are limited because you can only make a sauce as hot as the hottest pepper, which at the time was habanero. Mm-hmm. And so I said, gosh, well, the stuff in the pepper is hotter than the actual pepper. Why don't I just take that out and use that to make sauces? And that was our sort of innovation. That's where the super hots came from.
No, how did it occur to you just to grab some chili pepper extract? I mean, was it just something sitting around in the kitchen? Was it something you thought of and you had a special order?
I don't know how I first realized that the item in the pepper, the capsaicin, that was readily available in that form, because at the time the internet wasn't really around much. I guess I just did some homework, some research, and figured it out, and then tracked it down and started using it, because obviously doing homemade extracts in my little restaurant wasn't pragmatic. Yeah, it's certainly something that was out there. Pepper spray and I think ginger ale and some other things use it in varying degrees. So we tracked it down, and it's an interesting ingredient to work with, but it had desired effect.
Now, how did you go from there to going to the West Coast to opening up Dave's Gourmet?
So in the restaurant, we sort of made the sauces, and it sort of got this following. It was all a curiosity, and so somehow I found out about the Fiery Food Show in Albuquerque. Decided to go, and it was really more something we thought would be fun and funny than hey, let's launch a sauce business. But we went, and it was really an amazing reaction because people hadn't had anything even close to that heat level before. They really seemed to like it, and it was like, wow, people really want to buy this. They sort of built from there. I sold the restaurant and moved to California. It was my hobby, the sauce. It wasn't really meant to be a business. And so after a year, I had a job, and it just got too big. So I had to, leave my job and just kept doing the sauce.
That's a very interesting job to get into. Now, the famous incident at the Fiery Food Show where you had gotten banned, was it before that time? Was it right around that time?
Yeah, that was the time. So, when we first went to the Fiery Food Show in 1993, some guy had what we call a minor respiratory incident. So Dave DeWitt banned us from the show. Obviously the New York Times latched onto that and so forth. So, the legend grew. It was, I had my straitjacket on, it was insanity sauce, and so there's this whole sort of cohesive package of this wild sauce, and then this guy having a problem. And, I think when the Super Hots first came out, people who were used to eating habaneros, some of them were shocked when they ate it. Mm-hmm. If you're not in that world, it's almost like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? And so you're sort of like this fear grips some people. I think that's what happened to that guy. Was he sort of like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. Is this going to go away? What's happening? It does go away, as we all know. Mm-hmm. But it can be quite a ride.
Oh, yeah. I imagine way back then, 20 years. Can you believe it? It's passed since then.
Yeah.
The hottest thing around. Obviously, some hotter things have come out since then, especially the hottest chili peppers. And, we'll get into a lot of your products here shortly. I know you've been kind of keeping up with some of the hottest peppers, the buchalokias, the scorpion peppers. Have you found that to be a challenge? Have you tried to keep up just because of customer demand? Are you trying to sort of move away from the whole chili pepper extract aspect of it?
Yeah, the chili pepper extract is sort of a blessing and a curse at the same time because it dominates the flavor with that sort of smoky, some would say slightly acrid flavor. And so, but you needed the heat. But now that you have peppers that are actually hotter than your basic extracts, certainly not your hottest extracts, gives you an opportunity to move away. So in a sense, we're kind of glad about that. So like our new scorpion sauce doesn't have any extract and is the hottest sauce we make. So we're thrilled about that. It's sort of like an arms race. This sort of one-upsmanship on the hottest pepper now. And it's sort of, in a sense, it's fun to follow and be part of. And always try to stay current and do things that are interesting both for the consumers and for ourselves. It's challenging at the same time because you're sort of betting on what's going to prove out to be the hottest and how long is it going to last, and so there's a lot of confusion, sort of murkiness around this subject.
As far as the Dave's Insanity sauce has gone, do you think people still perceive you as the creator of that? And quite frankly, compared to your other products, I'm just going to be blunt. I don't like the taste of Dave's Insanity sauce. But your other sauces that derive the heat from the peppers, they have an excellent flavor. Your scorpion sauce tastes good, along with all the other ones. Do you think that your whole image of having created the Insanity sauce with the extract has hurt you in certain people's eyes?
It's quite possible. I think, that would be a smaller subset of people. But, it sort of is what it is. You live and die by the sword. We're hoping that we're able to communicate to people that we're all about innovation. And so, at the time, that was the innovation we made was to go much hotter using that technology because it was really the only way to do it at the time. But, since then, if you look at what we've done in pasta sauces, we've had a lot of innovations there. Now sort of always keeping up with the hottest pepper and doing different things there. So, we've won tons of awards for flavor. And so, we have sort of both sides, and there are a lot of people that like the flavor of Insanity sauce. I don't want to slam it in that sense. But, it's different. It's tomato-based. It's got the strong extract element. Certainly if you want the pepper flavor or a sweeter flavor, those sorts of profiles, that's probably not the sauce for you.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk about some of your other products as well. What are some of your favorite hot sauces that you make?
The Hurt and Habanero sauce, which is sort of a middle heat and sort of like a dry spice flavor, has always been one of my favorites of what we do. Mm-hmm. So certainly the scorpion and the ghost pepper sauces have more of a pepper flavor, but you have to be able to withstand high heat levels to deal with those. I like those a lot. And, ginger peach, which is one of our hot sauces that's really not even hot. That's got a great flavor. It's a sweeter sauce, more fruit influenced. And then, we have, 16, 17 different hot sauces, so there's lots of different flavor profiles.
No, I especially love the ginger peach over ice cream. I'm a big fan. I'm always telling people, I love the combination of sweet and heat, and that is one of the best examples of that kind of subset of flavored hot sauces.
Yeah. Certainly Spicey World has, the full range of different flavors that I think, people outside of the pepper industry don't really understand maybe. But, the heat is just one element, but, peppers have lots of different flavors, and you can do lots of different things with them.
Many people might not know, you're a full-fledged gourmet food company, and you create some excellent pasta sauces as well. As a matter of fact, one of my favorites is the butternut squash pasta sauce. How did that one in particular develop?
Well, between hot sauces and pasta sauces, we had a number of other groupings. So, we did jams that were meant to be paired with cheeses, and we did a whole line of flavored mayonnaise and salad dressings and salsas and a bunch of other items. So we've had lots of sort of experiments, if you will. But we're always sort of looking, where can we do something different? And, of course, we wanted to do a line that you would buy a jar and it has a higher turn rate. That was something we're thinking about. And when we looked at pasta sauces, it's sort of a sea of red. It's every brand is basically the same, 4 to 7 flavors. And the whole idea in that category is everyone trying to out-authentically Italian everyone else. My grandmother is more Italian than your grandmother. Mm-hmm. So, we're sort of the California innovative type of thing, and we're like, well, that doesn't make sense to us. So pasta is a very neutral item, right? It's not really strongly flavored. So, what could pair well with pasta that would taste good? And so, you'd butternut squash ravioli, so we know butternut squash tastes good with pasta. Why not make a sauce out of it? We did that, and, we had a wild mushroom sauce that's more mushroomy. We have a masala sauce, which is sort of a Thai-Indian sort of fusion. And then we've had a bunch of other experiments in that category. Honestly, we sell more pasta sauce than we do anything else. We've won Best Pasta Sauce in the industry 2 different times. It's great. We really love it. And it's sort of interesting, though. People always revert to, the mean. So in pasta sauce, no matter what you make, your marinara will almost always be your best seller. Mm-hmm. You have to sort of combine doing something really different and doing some things that are more standard, but trying to do them at a very high quality level.
What is the process one of your products goes through from conception to final production? How many recipes and formulas do you decide on before a final one finally comes out?
Yeah, that's an interesting area with us. And this is where I think we're somewhat deficient. I was curious, what other companies do in that area. So I talked to some of the bigger companies in the specialty food industry and a bunch of friends, and how many revisions do they do? And what I found was that a lot of people, they basically go through 1 to 10, maybe on the outside they'll go through 12 revisions. And I was like, wow, that sounds terrific, because we will go through, at a minimum, I would say, 30 and sometimes hundreds of revisions. Mm-hmm. It can take us, the worst case, 2 to 3 years to develop a sauce. In a sense, as our standards have really risen over the years and become very strict, we're not very productive in terms of getting new items out the door, but we're pretty proud of the quality standards. It can take quite a long time of tasting and revising and just trying to get through the panel, getting numerical scores up high enough. So we actually do sort of a numerical scoring system of, 1 through 10. How much do we like it based on, flavor and appearance and consistency and smell and all that. And then we also do comparative. So we'll find what we think are the best sauces or competitors in that niche. And when we do blind taste tests against them, we have to beat them to be an item that we consider launching, while also hitting a sort of minimum score numerically. So it's kind of rigorous. We've certainly been told by a few people that we're a little too strict and we need to loosen up a little bit.
Depends on the final result. If it comes out to be something high quality, what is too strict?
Yeah, well, I think the business people are saying, we're not very productive, and that the difference that we're driving is not enough of a difference. It's sort of good enough versus great, and so every business has to make that decision. For us, we're certainly proud of what we make, and hoping that it's moving the category and the consumer experience forward, and not just giving them the same thing they can get 20 other places.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and describe a typical day for you.
Gosh, I wish there was a typical day.
Try.
It's chaotic. So there'll be usually one or two sort of either conference calls or meetings or something of that sort to discuss, a marketing initiative or R&D status or some sort of, do lots of sort of research, so lots of webinars and things like that. Do tons of emailing back and forth with either sort of our outside contractors or staff to just sort of get updates. A lot of back and forth on, with this distributor or that customer, what's the promotion or special. Once you get in grocery, there's a lot of that sort of side of things. So lots of emailing back and forth about those things. R&D is a big piece of what I do. So a lot of going back and forth on, gosh, that ingredient isn't doing it. What's another way we can tweak this to make the flavor we want? And then I handle certain customers myself. So, back and forth with like Costco type of things. The name is not what they want, so how can we rename it? Or, if we thought through this packaging implication for them, or you don't want to make a mistake at that volume level because it'll cost you a fortune. Lots of back and forth emailing, really. I mean, it's almost like a battle. Like, can you get your email, down before it grows to too many emails, or that's modern life, I guess. Yeah, a lot of that. And then I'm not in the office every day, so when I'm in the office, we spend do a tasting almost every day. Lots of tastings, and then getting back to people, whether it be outside people or our internal R&D, about here's what we're thinking, and okay, based on those results, how should we change it or tweak it?
Yeah, and when you say tastings, is it prototypes of certain products?
Yeah. So like we had said, we go through so many revisions. I saw a couple people tasting this morning of a potential new pasta sauce. So we'll have 2 or 3 versions that we'll be tasting either by themselves or against a competitor, blind tasting. You'll see R&D guy in there recording all the scores and trying to understand what people are saying. The whole thing of scoring in people's tastes is very complicated, actually. People are so subjective. So a guy who might not like the sample he's tasting, but what you don't know is he actually just doesn't like anything with scallions in it. And so this thing might have green onions. So it's not that he doesn't like the sauce. He would never like that sauce. Mm-hmm. And some things are tough, like a marinara. I mean, you'll never get a marinara that has a super high score because marinara is so standard. It doesn't drive a lot of excitement. Whereas like the butternut or something different can really make people say, wow.
Yeah.
Coming to understand what people are actually saying when they score something or when they judge a sauce, has really evolved over the years of sort of what they're saying and what we interpret that to mean. So, I'm still learning, but it's sort of complicated.
What kind of advice would you give to an up-and-coming fiery foods company?
Yeah, I always give the same piece of advice because I just think it's so important. So much that you see out in the marketplace is average because that's right, the definition of average. I think if you're coming out with something, what's your reason for doing it? Is it just because you have it and you just want to send it out there and sort of see what happens? Or do you want to build a significant size company, or is it just hobby? Because if you're not offering something special to the marketplace, it's so much harder to build anything. Mm-hmm. What's the point? If you're going to offer something that's average, really, what is the point? My advice is offer something that they can't get from 9 other companies, that has some point of difference, and sort of test it out with strangers, and strangers who probably represent your target market, because, but people test it out with their friends and their family, and they're afraid to say anything mean. Go to people that will be brutally honest and tell you, no, there's nothing special about this, or it's different, but it's just too weird, and we wouldn't buy it. Because you're trying to hit this weird zone that's not too normal and too plain, but not too weird. And so it's this balancing act between a point of difference, but a point of difference that people actually want.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see Dave's Gourmet 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, we're going to continue to build in the hot sauce side, the pasta sauce side, and we'll probably launch into a couple other categories. And it's sort of an interesting growth path because, like with pasta sauces, you're on a supermarket shelf, you're not going to get 30 of your sauces on there. So at a certain point, you're not only competing with other companies, but you're coming out with a new sauce that you're actually hoping will become your second or first best seller. And so you're actually hoping to compete with your own items. Mm-hmm. So if you have 5 different flavors on the shelf, you're hoping that your 5th seller, your worst seller, will get knocked out because you'll launch something new that sells twice as fast. So, we're continually looking to see what can we add to the marketplace that's not out there, but that's not too weird, but you can actually produce for less than $1,000 a jar.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually you can get the ingredients year round, and all the sort of pragmatic considerations of like, how do you make something that you can actually get out there and that's special and represent your company well? And it's challenging. To do it right is very difficult.
What is your favorite products that you create?
Well, I mean, I think the butternut squash is probably my favorite item. It's sort of that weird combination of it's fantastic tasting, it's different, it's actually it's golden colored, it's not red like most pasta sauces. It's got a great smell. It was a huge award winner, but it's also a big seller. But it hits all the things that we'd hope an item would do. It's sort of a launching off point that sort of took our pasta sauce line and really put it on the map. And so, I just really love that item.
What do you think of fiery food shows and big trade shows? Do you ever see yourself coming back to events like the Fiery Food Show in Albuquerque? I'm pretty sure by this time the ban could be lifted if you haven't already officially gotten word. Do you ever see yourself kind of coming back to and talk and interact with fans, or do you think it's just not advantageous at this stage with your company to do so?
Yeah, I like trade shows. I personally think they're fun. And I certainly do like the sort of interaction, and you learn from it, and partly you're giving back to people. It became a conscious decision for us. Like, I have 3 young kids. I made a decision that, I didn't want to be on the road too much because I wanted to spend time with them. I think if there's a need, where I need to be there and a customer, it's really important to the customers or something like that, then I would make that commitment to do it. Otherwise, I sort of keep it very minimal, so I can, a real commitment to my family. And, also I think, we look at where can we really benefit people the most? I feel like our company is built on products. Our sort of thought process is it's the product stupid. Mm-hmm. By making innovative and better products, we think we can, give the most to people rather than me spending my time flying around. So that's where we focus is R&D, and rather than me going and saying hi for 2 minutes, I'd rather give them a sauce that gives them joy.
Well put. Where could people find you online?
davesgourmet.com is our website, and of course a lot of the other fiery food websites that sell other people's products have our items, and so and sometimes it's actually a better deal not to go to our website but to go to their websites. So I encourage you.
I guess as long as you get a little bit of money, huh?
Well, I mean, you want to support the people that support you. So early on, it was always a concern, like, gosh, if you have your item on both, does it undercut people? And we only do it on our site as a convenience. We really want to support the people that are out there, selling and building the fiery foods industry and specialty foods industry.
Oh, exactly. Of course, you're ubiquitous. Probably find you at just about any online hot sauce shop. I guess to see, your full range of products, including, some of your snack foods, which we didn't talk about. Everyone can find it at davesgourmet.com. Of course, I'll put the link in the show notes for this particular episode. Yeah. Okay. So, Dave, thank you very much for taking time to talk with me today.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate your time and interest.
Okay. Well, you take care.
Thanks.
Joining me. Dave's a great guy. Always a pleasure speaking to him. And if you know him in any capacity, he's totally not the zany, insane persona that he might project. You might have seen pictures of him in a straitjacket online, but he is one of the most mild-mannered, just sweethearts of a guy you'll ever want to meet. So again, his website is davesgourmet.com, and of course, as Dave mentioned, you could buy his products at just about any online hot sauce shop. I mean, there are a million of them out there. I'm not going to go through and name a whole bunch. Just go to any website that sells more than one brand of hot sauce. You'll find Dave's products there. And once again, the review product of the week, Spicy Rooster's Bourbon Barbecue Sauce. Big thumbs up. I highly recommend this product. 4 out of 5 stars from me. You can get that at spicyrooster.com. Again, that's spelled E-Y at the end of spicy. And yep, I'll go ahead and plug the contact form again. I want to hear from you. Any type of feedback you want to give me, you can send it away by either going to twoguystalking.com/Firecast or weeklyfirecast.com. I'll go ahead and plug my main blog, scottrobertsweb.com, the hub for all my spicy activities on the web. If you're on Facebook, you can like my page at facebook.com/ScottRobertsWeb. If you're on Twitter, you can follow me at twitter.com/ScottRoberts. And now the last segment of the show, where I mention everyone who has retweeted the link to the last episode of the Weekly Firecast on Twitter or reshared it on Facebook. And starting off with Twitter, there was Midwest Chili Heads. Their Twitter handle is at MWCHS. Hot Sauce Addicts. And their Twitter handle is at Hot Sauce Addicts. And there was Pepper Palace Niagara. Their Twitter handle is Pepper Palace NF. There was Nathan Corner. His Twitter handle is at Cheeky Cayenne. Jonathan Fossberg. His Twitter handle is at J Fossberg. There was Sean Power. His Twitter handle is Sean6971. There was the Heat Hot Sauce Shop. Their Twitter handle is at Heat Hot Sauce. And Scott Wheeler. His Twitter handle is at Scott J. Wheeler. And sharing a link on Facebook. Of course, there was John the Creator Dilly, who I happened to have interviewed last week in episode 35. Shared a link on Facebook. Thank you, John. And there was Burn Your Tongue Hot Sauces. Thank you very much, guys, for sharing a link. There was Garden of Eaton Fresh Foods, who also shared a link on Facebook. And there was the International Hot Sauce Festival and the World Hot Sauce Awards, sharing it on Facebook. And last but not least, it was Adam Fair of Endorphin Farms. Thanks again for everybody who helped spread the word about the only current running online show about fiery foods and barbecue. So with that wraps up episode 36. I want to tell everybody, God bless you, and until next time, remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.